Today, we're jumping straight into a really eye-opening document titled The Tactics of a Controlling Lover. We're going to dive deep into the hidden and honestly overwhelming reality of controlling relationships. Our goal here is to decode these incredibly complex behaviors together so you can get the absolute clarity you need to spot them and protect yourself. Right off the bat, the source hits us with a pretty harsh question. Are you in love or are you a target? I know it's a really heavy question to even think about, but honestly, addressing it head on is the absolutely crucial first step to figuring out if your partner genuinely has your best interests at heart. Because as you'll see, a controlling person's motives are so deeply rooted in selfishness that authentic, stable love is basically impossible. 118. Just let that number sink in for a second. That staggering number represents the distinct, individual, manipulative tactics detailed in our source's checklist. This proves beyond a shadow of a doubt that controlling behavior is not just a partner having an isolated bad day or snapping because they're stressed. No, it is a calculated, systemic pattern. It's literally a vast arsenal of strategies designed to gain and keep total dominion over your shared life. To help you navigate this massive playbook without getting totally overwhelmed, we've structured this explainer into 5 key phases: the mask and the illusion, masters of mental manipulation, covert sabotage and isolation, the emotional battlefield, and finally, the awakening and escape. Let's kick things off with phase 1, the mask and the illusion. This first phase is all about the setup. It's where they create this false sense of security while secretly plotting total control. The key thing you have to understand here is the difference in how they view connection. You and I know that healthy relationships run on real love, right? Giving freely without constantly asking for something in return. But the controller, they operate completely on transactional love. To them, the relationship is just a barter system. They keep a literal running tab in their head on reciprocity. Every single interaction is calculated, and they actually feel a profound sense of loss anytime they have to compromise or concede anything to you. So how do they hide this? They use what the author calls the mask. This deeply transactional nature is hidden behind a really charismatic facade. The mask acts as a surrogate for their true character. It lets them fake happiness and appear perfectly normal, even charming, in public, all while treating you with absolute contempt the second you're both behind closed doors. It's a totally exhausting performance, but it's exactly what they rely on to keep you completely off balance. Moving right along to phase 2, masters of mental manipulation. Once they've got that illusion firmly established, they start deploying these subtle psychological mind games to literally program your behavior. A perfect example is what the source calls the dog whisperer tactic. Instead of having a normal conversation about household roles, they use high-frequency nonverbal cues to condition you. They might intentionally leave chores undone, like leaving items on the floor for days, just waiting for you to get frustrated and do it yourself. They are essentially training you to perform tasks entirely by their design, without saying a word. And things get even crazier during arguments. You might witness them doing something called leaping through time, which is an incredibly disorienting timeline. At minute 1, you're having a rational, adult conversation. But by minute 5, they've completely shifted into acting like a scolding parent, demanding obedience with stuff like, "Now you listen to me." And then, by minute 10, when their logic completely falls apart, they retreat into acting like a victimized, injured child just to avoid taking any blame. It's completely erratic. And hey, if you try to calmly address this erratic behavior, be prepared for the Texas turnaround. The exact second you bring up a valid concern, they immediately pivot and launch a rapid fault-finding assault against you. They turn it around so fast that they never ever have to acknowledge their own failures. Suddenly, you're the one defending yourself instead of actually talking about the original problem. It's a classic misdirection. That brings us to phase 3, covert sabotage and isolation. As your lives get more entwined, the playbook shifts to covert operations that are specifically designed to weaken your independence. They'll use a deeply insidious tactic known as the cool sabo, deliberately grinding your personal progress to a halt. This could be static sabotage, like making empty promises to fix your laptop so you can't get your work done. Or it can be operational, hands-on interference. The source actually gives a chilling example of a controller physically turning down the heat in the middle of winter because they know their partner is prone to getting sick. They are literally creating conditions to keep you weak and dependent. To make sure you don't just pack up and leave, they use interdiction. They systematically disrupt your communication to isolate you from your meaningful friendships, All the while, they're keeping their own social networks super strong, spreading lies and propaganda to sully your reputation. They do this so that to the outside world, they constantly look like the poor, long-suffering victim, which leads into phase 4, the emotional battlefield. When their subtle little mind games fail and their back is against the wall, they drag you onto a chaotic, no-holds-barred combat zone. Out here, your own words are weaponized against you. Think about it. In a normal relationship, partners use critical analysis, right? They examine weaknesses to help you succeed and grow, but a controller, they use pure criticism. They attack you personally just to tear you down, constantly highlighting your flaws to diminish your self-worth. If you catch them in a lie, they unleash this highly structured combo assault. It usually goes exactly like this. Step 1 is the sensitive assault. They play the deeply injured victim, acting shocked that you'd even question them. If you don't cave, they move to step 2, the undignified assault. This is uncontrollable rage, insults, and wild accusations. And if you're still standing, step 3 is the ultimatum, the classic take-it-or-leave-it threat of abandonment, designed to force you to surrender. But what if you logically withstand that entire combo? Well, then they literally throw the kitchen sink at you. When all their defensive arguments completely fail, the mask drops for good. They reveal that callous soul underneath by hurling horrific, toxic insults and totally random name-calling. It has absolutely no basis in reality. Its only purpose is to distract you, hurt you, and break your resolve. Finally, we reach phase 5, the awakening and escape. Here is the truly empowering part. Once you decode these tactics, you can escape. But before we even talk about next steps, the source draws a very hard, absolute line in the sand. If the abuse ever escalates to physical violence, that is an absolute deal breaker. No excuses, it is a total violation of your rights and proves they lack any and all self-control. If this happens, it means it is time to evacuate your situation immediately for your own safety. Look, when you finally had enough, when you're ready to lay down firm boundaries or just leave the relationship entirely, do not do it alone. Abusers thrive in the dark, so shine a light on it. Lean heavily on vital support networks, law enforcement, strong family, courageous friends, community services, legal advocates, and pastoral care. Let these people bring truth and safety back into your life. There's a really profound quote from the author here. You shall know the truth, and it will make for you a measure of freedom. Realizing that you've been the target of systemic emotional abuse is incredibly painful. But accepting that truth, finally seeing the playbook for what it is, provides the exact measure of freedom you need to survive this and thrive again. Now that you know the controller's playbook, the power is firmly back in your hands. You're no longer in the dark. You have the clarity to start building a healthy blueprint for your future. So, with all this knowledge in your corner, what will your very first step be to reclaim your reality? Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer. Keep learning, stay focused, and above all, stay safe out there.